crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
This is Discover Crypto. What do we have happening in the news? Jerome Powell under investigation. We have a very heated battle between the Fed chair and Donald Trump. Looks like it is going to go very, very heated. Gold is reacting in a strong way. Bitcoin also going to react in a strong way. We got a risk-reward analysis on Cardano, XRP, and Ethereum, and some charts we're going to show you. And we have some updates on the Clarity Act. I'm joined here by TJ. And TJ, I think we need a... Well, first off, how are you doing? How was the weekend?
I'm doing good. It was a very full weekend. I had some sad news, but I'll share that a little bit later in the show. First off, a lot going on out there. I mean, you mentioned we have a lot to cover in the show today. Smash the like buttons on your way in because we're going to be breaking all this stuff down. Obviously, biggest news, like you mentioned, Jerome Powell, Trump feud heating up. We've also got geopolitical stuff going on everywhere. It seems like every time you turn around, there's a new war. So a lot to get into as far as how this impacts our portfolios and everything else in the world. So, but yeah, let's start with Powell. I saw this yesterday and I was like, this came out of nowhere. I was like, dang, this shot's fired. This is a pretty direct accusation, basically.
Very direct. We're going to break down exactly why Powell is under investigation.
Is that playing for you, sound?
Should.
Okay.
All right. They are saying no. So let me pull this window. Then we could maybe you want to go full screen. I'll do it. All right. So let me see here. Just double check. Added the window there. Let me just double check. Yeah. So very, very strong implications. Obviously, very impactful on the markets. We don't know for sure how this is going to roll out for the rest of the day. Now we got the sound. Now we got the sound.
I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people. Thank you.
All right. Well, there we go. There is the comment. And now, TJ, a lot of people are bringing up the previous meeting between Trump and Powell. It's the famous meeting where they had the hard hats. They're saying this was one of the first moves. This is where we kind of saw it started. And he's saying, look, this is not about renovations. This is entirely about the Fed rates. Well, where are we getting that, let's just say speculation? Where are we getting that allegation? A lot of it came from the end. So it's kind of going over the buildings. You might remember they're arguing back and forth. Oh, no, that was an old building. Well, no, I thought it's in today's budget. Well, it was completed 2 years ago. They go back and forth. But at the very end, there was a very important part where listen for the reporter's question here.
Some of the earlier criticism President, are there things the chairman can say to you today that would make you back off some of the earlier criticism?
Are there things the chairman can say today that will make you back off, Donald Trump? And here's what he had to say.
Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates.
I'd love for him to lower interest rates. And TJ, he gave him the alpha backslap.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the alpha backslap?
I think, yeah, I mean, in that moment, I think Powell knew this wasn't going to, this was, he was in for it, I guess. I mean, obviously, that was a little bit of an ambush. He had the paper in his pocket. He had the Senate Banking Committee. I think it's Tim Scott there with him to kind of throw some figures at him that came from his own office that he wasn't prepared for. There's a lot of this, obviously, is political. It's jockeying, and there's a little bit of dishonesty on both sides. I do think a lot of this does come down to interest rates, but it's also really makes me cringe when I hear Powell saying, that they're taking, that their primary concern is the public and the people, because that hasn't been true, in my opinion, since the start of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has never followed through on their charter to preserve the American people, in my opinion. So to me, I think this is great. I'm here for this. I know I'm not necessarily saying either side is right, but seeing somebody taking direct shots at the Federal Reserve is long overdue. They've definitely enriched themselves, and I think it's very disingenuous to act like they've never caved or bent to political pressure in the past.
Now to that point, I think a lot of people point to the tail end of Joe Biden's presidency, where Powell did lower interest rates heading into the November elections. So probably a lot of people are going to point to that and say, Powell, you weren't independent. But then the detractors would say, well, Trump appointed him. And then, I mean, you could go back. Well, you went to D.C. He became a swamp rat creature. He became an insider. And a lot of that is just going to be antithetical to Trump.
True. But let's step away from the interest rates here for a minute. The big thing, what do we always talk about that matters way more than interest rates as it relates to the Federal Reserve?
Would it be the enforcement arm?
Well, their balance sheet, right? That's really what drives markets and changes things. And that's kind of what this guy mentioned here that I wanted to point out. I mean, the statement is hilariously ridiculous to say we stand firm. And you're talking about that same period, March 2020, right? Where, yeah, they did ask him to lower interest rates. But here was the real thing. I mean, they literally had a conversation to say, like, yeah, you got to stop this. And then boom, we saw the balance sheet absolutely skyrocket. And that's what created a massive bull run in all markets. We're starting to see that sort of stuff happening now. And to me, the balance sheet, what they're buying, basically the Fed came out and said, we'll buy anything. We're not just the buyer of last resort. We're the buyer in any resort, any reason. If any bank needs to be propped up, we're going to buy it. We're going to sustain this economy. And that came shortly after a conversation with political figures. So to act like it's typical politics, in my opinion, to hide behind some of these phrases. Oh, independence is key. And like we're separated, and it's like they're truly not. They work together, and they've never really been independent. It's just kind of a phase that they like to hide behind. And Trump is basically saying, like, you can claim to be independent or not, but in my opinion, they used a lot of lawfare on Trump, and he's a fast learner. And so he says, okay, if you guys want to play this game, let's get into the lawfare game. So, I like it. I think the Federal Reserve really should be taken out and abolished. Obviously, that's going to have incredible impact on markets, and they have been a stabilizing force over the years.
Who would run the Fed's balance sheet in that scenario?
I think they would take it to the Treasury and Scott Bessent.
Okay, so
in the short term, but who knows? That's a
agency.
Pretty unknown scenario. This is something that hasn't really happened in 100+ years. So I would say, there's a pretty wide open playbook for what happens next. I just think, to act like banks are your friends and the Federal Reserve's here to protect the American people is just disingenuous at best. Kind of like the government, kind of like acting like the government has the best interest of the people at heart. That's not usually the case either. The best governments are usually designed and operate for their own survival and to stay in power, not to empower the people, in my experience anyway. So to me, again, all roads point back to Bitcoin in my world. This is why you want to have a sovereign asset that's disconnected from the Fed, that's disconnected from the government. And it's just another big win for Bitcoin, in my opinion. And those don't always translate immediately, even though it does seem like it got a pump on this. But over time, this all strengthens the use case for Bitcoin dramatically, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can see the initial market reaction right here. Very, very nice move to the upside. Now, we do know gold trades 24/7, but gold also had a nice pump today. We are seeing a little bit of 10 a.m. movement here. I'm loving this movement around 10 a.m. right here. This is the 10 a.m. candle. So maybe Wall Street got the memo. Let's push it down. Let's get our cheap entries, and then we can really let Bitcoin take off like a rocket. Let's look at the rest of the crypto market. Then we're going to kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive in Representative Luna's investigation. What is he saying? What is the perjury charges related to? What did he say exactly in front of Congress? Let's look at the markets. I want to hit refresh just to double check here. Nice little pump for the last hour. Bitcoin getting out of the red into the green. Ethereum about flat as a pancake here, 0%, as flat as Tether is. We have BNB slightly down, Solana slightly up, and we have Cardano also pretty flat here. Bitcoin Cash with a little bit of a tumble, and Monero. We are going to talk about Dubai banning privacy coins. Monero just says, haha, try to stop me. Zcash too. So we're seeing nice little movements there. MYX with the little movement as well. Solana really impressing here, being one of the top movers in being that it's one of the majors. Hash is down. Bitcoin Cash is down. And Polygon cooling off a little bit. It had a very good pump for the week. So now down 5%. I might be getting close to pulling the trigger on some Polygon, TJ. I want to get it below 15 cents, but we're getting pretty close to accumulation range. Are there any alts that you got your eye on? Or are you still kind of waiting for Jerome Powell news to kind of maybe, I don't know, stop the reverberations in the market?
No, I haven't taken any action as of this weekend, but recently I have been. Obviously, you guys know I love Aerodrome, which is another one that's up pretty good today. I also added some Tau. I do see Tau being very, very strong in the AI run in altcoin. It's a hard cap. It's being used. It's a legitimate project. So Tau is kind of my main AI play that I'm holding right now. And I am trying to position ahead of some of this stuff. I do think, in my opinion, we have to wait for that Clarity Act to happen, which I know we have some news and some coverage on that a little bit later in the show. But that, to me, is going to be kind of the biggest catalyst to move us forward into another bull market. All of these other macro things are playing out. I do think interest rates are going to come down. We do have the big, beautiful bill kicking in. They're talking about $500 billion in military spending. So there's a lot of spending coming down the pike that I think will be bullish for all markets. But for crypto specifically, we really need that Clarity Act and the market structure bill to come through. And that's when, I think it's going to go back to, fun season across the board. Now, is that going to happen in February? Is it going to happen in, May, June? That's a bunch of politics that I'm not really sure on yet, but I do think it's coming soon. So for me, I'm just slowly positioning myself, still very heavy Bitcoin. I probably will always remain at least 50% Bitcoin. But I do have a fair amount of Ethereum and other altcoins to be prepared, because obviously the best prices you get is before that news kicks in. Once the news kicks in and it's live, all markets pump. I mean, you guys, if you've been here for a while, Bitcoin and crypto markets can move extremely quickly. You can wake up to 20, 30, 40% candles overnight, multiple days in a row. Then once that 200% hits, you've missed your best entry. So for me, I'm willing to get positioned near the bottom, even if it goes a little bit lower, just to speculate on that upside. And that's what I've been doing these last, really not as much this past weekend, but a couple weekends before.
All right. Well, before we get into the rest of the Jerome Powell news, I do want to share just real quickly, a nice liquidity pocket is below us. Bitcoin has cleared most of the liquidity above us. This is the liquidation heat map, and it turns a brighter color when there's liquidations that are at this level. And so Bitcoin did pump up, liquidated a lot of shorts, and now it might be the longs turns, and it looks like it goes down to about 89,500. So just a little bit of a warning. If it drops there, you heard it here first, folks. Let's break down. So U.S. prosecutors are investigating Federal Chair Jerome Powell criminal probes. Look at his testimony to Congress over central bank renovations. And so they're investigating him over his testimony last summer about a building renovation project. We showed you the hard hats. That was the building. That was one of the buildings. An extraordinary video statement that we played earlier. He called the investigation a pretext, a part of Trump's campaign to pressure the Fed to lower interest rates and end their independence. The investigation marks the most aggressive step in Trump's campaign to bend the Fed to his will. He's publicly paraded Powell for being too slow to lower the interest rates. He said he was thinking of suing Powell for gross incompetence, and they're also attempting to remove Fed Governor Lisa Cook in a case that is still before the Supreme Court. Now, Trump said last night to NBC News he didn't know about the Justice Department subpoenas and that any criminal investigation wouldn't be related to the disagreements that the White House had with Powell over interest rates. Before I finish reading, TJ, is this statement true? Trump said, I didn't know, and any investigation has nothing to do with the Fed rates.
Who knows? Right? You'll never be able to prove
I am
that.
asking you to mind read. So no one knows for sure except for Trump because we're trying to speculate about his inner thoughts.
Yeah, and this is, again, stupid political games. Could he not know for sure? Could he, doesn't obviously he's going to say it doesn't have anything to do with Fed rates. That's always how it works. They're playing the legal games here. But clearly there seems to be, he could say like, hey, we need to look into, he's been out there signaling, hey, somebody needs to do something. Somebody needs to look into this guy. What is his motivation? And then if somebody took action based on those statements, like, oh, I didn't know they were going to do that. I was just calling for it, so it is, it's a bunch of political games, just for perspective for people. I do kind of agree with Pomp's take on some of this. He had another breakdown too, but $3 billion, Americans are struggling to afford a normal life, but the Federal Reserve is spending $3 billion to build themselves a castle fit for kings. And and this is some of the, I think these are renderings, but this is some of the stuff that they're doing that is just, it is definitely exorbitant. I know that some of the expenses are high because they're historic buildings, but again, if you're playing the political game, politics, I think, favors Trump on this, because when people see, hey, okay, you guys are spending $3 billion to make yourselves the nicest office you could ever imagine, while the normal everyday Americans getting taxed into oblivion and can't afford groceries, they can't afford their car insurance, they can't afford their daycare. That's gonna ring true to a lot of people at home. So again, it's politics. I hate politics. You guys know that. These are all just, wordplay and games and positioning and jockeying and power. And again, this is why I want Bitcoin, something that's removed from the state, removed from the Federal Reserve. And, luckily, I think this is all things are pushing us in that direction, which is interesting. Obviously, Trump is a big fan of Bitcoin and has been very vocal about that. Now, who knows if this is an intentional push towards commodities and towards real world things, or not. What you got?
I'm seeing a lot of people bringing up the ballroom as a corollary. It is a failed metaphor there, because one is taxpayer money and one is private donations. So if you're not aware, the ballroom is not federal money, is not your tax dollars at work. If you have a problem with sponsors paying for the building, well, that's a different story. And I would agree with you. I also think that that is not great. But let's get back into the Jerome Powell. So when asked, are you pressuring him over interest rates? Are you pressuring him? He said, I wouldn't even think of doing it that way. What should pressure him is the fact that rates are far too high. That's the only pressure Powell has. Now, the investigation is run out of the Washington U.S. Attorney's Office of Janine Pirro, a close Trump ally, began in November examining Powell's his testimony and the Fed spending records. Now, the subpoena dated July 19th, 2025. So this has been going on for half of a year at this point. And this is some of the specific examples. Under testimony, no VIP dining room. Well, documentation showing restoration of private dining rooms. So now we got like, is it a lie? Is it not? I think that's a little gray. No new marble, but it does describe new marble use in additions. No special elevators. Does note the extension of the governor's private elevator. The detractors are saying, well, this is just to make it ADA compliant. So I am trying to play both sides here. No new water features. That's what Powell said under testimony. Well, it does look like there's new water features. And no roof terrace gardens. It does detail a vegetated roof terrace with plantings. Powell's calling the reports inaccurate. These are unproven as of yet. So a little timeline. He testifies the building has no new features. This is in June. Then that letter comes out July. And then the hard hat moment, that was July of 2025. And then last night, he released the unprecedented statement. So this is the little bit of a timeline you see for Powell. Now, another take from Powell, or from Pomp for Powell. Powell had his video response posted online within minutes after the New York Times story broke. That suggests the Fed and maybe Powell himself were the ones to leak the investigation to the New York Times. So it's an intriguing story, TJ, when you start pulling at these threads. But we did get a super chat here, $20. Elliot talks about trap coming. I'm guessing talk about Elio trades, and he's going to be doing his crypto housekeeping at Bitcoin at 100K. How would you do your housekeeping if your portfolio projects are in a big loss? and you're not on a long-term strategy. So I'm assuming there's a lot of altcoins in that portfolio. I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. I think it's fine to consolidate alts, but I wouldn't sell if alt is down bad against Bitcoin and it's at historical support and it looks like it's going to bounce soon, or if it's like ETH and it's in an uptrend and it looks like it's going to continue to bounce. I don't know if I'd consolidate all my alts into Bitcoin, but if you have a lot of stinkers in your altcoin portfolio, consolidate your alts, maybe get some more of the top 10, maybe get some more of the top 15, get some Solana, some ETH, some Chainlink.
I agree with that. And the key statement there is, and you're not on a long-term strategy, or you are on a long-term strategy, but you don't want to hold these alts long-term. And there's nothing wrong with cutting your losses and rolling your capital into things you actually have conviction in. That's something I really encourage people to do. A lot of times when you get into crypto, people get excited. They start buying all these different things, and then they look back like, why did I buy this? I have no conviction in this project whatsoever. That's very normal. I do think the best way to make it in crypto is if you have a project that you believe has long-term staying power. For me, that's been Ethereum, something like that. Obviously, it's traded sideways. It's been beaten down. It's underperformed Bitcoin, a lot of people could say, lately. But I still have a long-term conviction in Ethereum, in tokenization, in DeFi, in RWAs, and a lot of these categories that Ethereum is dominant in. So it's easy for me to hold it while it trades sideways for what feels like forever, when in reality it's probably 2 years. But that to me is one of the best things you can do when you're doing house game. 100K makes sense. You're going to probably get those alts if they are beaten down bad. They've hopefully seen some type of rally off the bottom. If Bitcoin moves all the way back above 100K and your altcoin is still not moving, probably another good indication that you should take a hard look at that and consider your convictions and rolling it into something else.
Yeah. All right. Well, we do got 2 takes out there. We got Representative Luna. This has everything to do with the building. This is the building. And other people saying this has everything to do with the rates. Fed independence ended this week. So chat, type in building or rates. Is this about the building? Is this about his perjury? Or is this simply about the federal overnight bank depository rate, interest rate? We're talking about the interest rate that banks charge each other overnight. Donald Trump wants to lower interest rates across the board, and then we can kind of put our U.S. debt with a little bit of a cheaper credit card bill at the end of the day is kind of what we're talking about here. Now, there is a 90% chance of a rate cut in 2026, according to Polymarket. I missed that comment. I don't know if you threw that in. If you want to toss it in one more time.
What's that? Which comment?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't read it. So,
well, this one here, the problem isn't what they do with our tax money. The problem is that they tax us in the first place, which I agree. And then somebody else said all political theater. So
yeah, we got a lot of people saying it's all about the rates. Some are saying both. Not many people, TJ, are saying it's all about the building. It's all about the perjury.
It's nothing. It's nothing about the building. It's not like any of these people are unaccustomed to lavish office spaces when they're dealing with billions and trillions of dollars. You're used to fancy furniture and fancy floors. That's the way the ruling class live their life.
I used to watch MTV Cribs. I'm aware. I know.
Well, and this is even a whole other step up from that. I mean, people really like to think, like the middle class concept itself is an illusion. There really isn't a middle class. There is the ruling class, and then there's everybody else. And the ruling class have a completely different lifestyle, a different view of the world, kind of a different everything than most other people in the world. And ruling class would be the ones that, again, set the laws. They live above the laws. Yeah, it's a trick. It's an illusion.
It's an illusion, everybody. TJ, I swear I didn't know that second line was coming up. I just clicked on the gift that said it's an illusion, Michael. I wasn't expecting the second line of dialogue to come. All right, let's check on the Fed rates, folks. I am interested. Where are the Fed rates? So we're going to Polymarket. We're going to hit refresh. I know they got good API. I just want to double check here. Looking at January, TJ, how about that? Pretty flat, very flat even. I'm surprised there's not more movement. Now, maybe we did see, this is going to be Monday, Sunday, Saturday, Friday. Now, remember, this news broke Friday evening. He didn't do his video statement till last night. So maybe this is the news being front ran right there. But really, it's looking like we're going to not see much of a change here. 93% odds, no change for January. If we look at March, 69% odds of no change. But, declining rates for what do we see here? 25 basis points declining, no change. just rising and rising and rising.
Yeah, it's interesting. Keep an eye on this poly market. I don't expect there to be any change in January either, and especially after making a statement like that, it's almost impossible for him to make a change. I think he's kind of planting his flag in the ground just as much as Trump is, and saying we're going to stand tall. Now, I would say, there's a reason they say don't fight the Fed. The Fed is a pretty powerful organization. Jerome Powell is kind of the base of it, but he's not necessarily the one behind it all. It is a privately owned and privately run organization with some extremely powerful people. That's both politically and financially. So this is not a small battle. This arguably could be one of the biggest battles Trump is facing right now and fighting. So I wouldn't rule it out. I think there's not going to be a change in January. It's interesting. I think there is slightly, obviously just looking at those odds, there's a better odds of a change in March than in February. I saw, I think part of this could be trying to get it to where Powell can't vote even, like if he's under investigation, even if he's in the position, does that compromise his ability to vote? I've seen some people talking about that. And obviously Trump almost has to have the rates come down. The United States is trying to refinance right now this year, if you guys don't understand. So imagine trying to refinance a massive loan at 5% instead of at 1%. The payments will be dramatically different. So if he can force those rates down quickly before they have to refinance, that will make a big difference in the payments the United States has to make to the Federal Reserve for a long time. So to act like they're on the same team, it is also an illusion. It's just like acting like you and your bank are on the same team. Your bank likes to tell you we're together, but
secretly they're lobbying politicians to prevent you from getting yield.
Exactly. Literally. That's happening right now. They're trying to stop us.
We're going to expose them so hard. They're going to have chat. All right, let's move. Let's talk about gold real quickly. Just briefly, gold to silver, all-time high as the U.S. dollar weakened after Powell accused Trump of targeting the Fed. Now, we're going to check on some gold options. Now, we took all the profit on the silver options. We've rolled that into palladium. We've rolled that into gold. Both of those are still doing incredibly bullish. And I got a new one for you, folks. TJ, we keep looking at a gold ratio chart, the copper gold ratio, right? Well, what's about to happen with that? Copper's about to rise as gold's about to fall. I took out some copper options at market open this morning. I think I'm up. I think I'm up a bit. But let's check in on gold real quick, everybody. I know not everybody's interested in copper options, but I'm interested in making you rich. Gold and silver, new all-time high after the dollar weakened after Powell accused Trump of targeting the Fed. Now that the Fed's independence is at risk, investors are dumping dollars and buying metals for a safety hedge. So they're buying the nice gold shiny metal. Eventually, some of this is going to roll into the nice gold shiny Bitcoin. And let's just check in on the chart. This is a 4-hour chart here. You can see, gold on his parabolic move. And look at that 4-hour candle. This is looking very, very good. Ooh. Gold at an all-time high. Might as well check silver while we're at it here. Silver,
probably, yeah.
Also at an all-time high. Where's my palladium pals? Palladium pals, where are you at? Oh, this is going to start looking juicy. We jumped in. Remember, we took profits. We jumped in on palladium on the dip. And if we just check, look at that gold option. That gold option was trading $2.50 in the middle of last week, and now trading at $4. Nice. So we're sitting pretty over here, TJ. And I'll show you real quick. Copper priced in gold. It just looks like a reversal. Looks like a reversal. And let's just say if copper goes up against gold, these copper options, I should be able to buy a copper car just as a throwaway, TJ. It's going to be very, very bullish. I'm looking forward. So if you're in these trades with me, I put them in our Discord under DZ Trade. So join our Discord down below. We got some trades in. And TJ, I don't know if you saw the trading quants P&L for the past week.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. There's all kinds of good stuff in there. He's been crushing it. Lots. He does a weekly recap, daily recap. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
It's 1,183%.
1,100%. Yeah,
for the week. It's up 1,100%. Now, some of these are like 2 a.m. trades. It's like curve 27x, at 2 a.m. I'm not catching them all, but every single one I've caught has been in the green, and I caught one this morning. I closed it out completely, though.
Yeah, we're waiting. We are working on getting a lot of that automated to make it easier to follow. But we've traded, obviously, Bitcoin and leverage for a very, very long time. and you can make a ton of money doing it very quickly, but it also takes a ton of time and energy and focus to keep up with it. So I just said, you know what, F it, let's hire a quant and let him obsess over it. And then he gives us all his calls, and it's been we've had a lot of people in our Discord say they went from being a losing trader to a winning trader. So if you guys haven't had a chance, hop in there, check that out. It's a great product in there for you to use. And to come back to your options you were just talking about there a little bit, it's a good time to be in commodities. I'll say that much. I mean, Bitcoin, obviously, in my opinion, I view as a commodity. Gold, silver, copper, palladium, all those other things you just mentioned. In a world of uncertainty, in a world where building things matters and owning raw materials matters. People are talking about oil. People are talking about land. They're talking about rare earth minerals. It's a good time to be holding commodities because at the end of the day, commodities are what drive the world. Everything else, you can make a lot of money speculating on equities and other things. But for the most part, having commodities is, I think, a very safe way and has been a safe way to position your portfolio over the lifespan, but also over the last 12 to 24 months. And I expect for the next 12 to 24 months. So that's where we're focused. That's where we see the most profits upcoming. And you're going to be hearing us talk about them a lot on this channel because that's what we're doing. And we always like to talk about what we're doing ourselves. So.
And quant comes from quantitative analysis. And it's just someone that typically will have a math degree or just be a math prodigy. And they just kind of go over trading. They're looking at hedging. They're looking at delta neutral strategies. They're just basically identifying the best trades. And we copy this Chinese quant.
Yes, and they're using basically statistical analysis, very high level math, like DZ just said, to identify entries and exits. There's a lot of trades. They're quick. Like you said, a lot of them come in overnight because a lot of times, by the way, the best traders, almost all the best traders that I know, trade from like 7 p.m. our Eastern time to about 11 a.m. Eastern time because you're catching Asia open, you're catching Europe open, you catch US open at the end, and then not a lot happens kind of between 12 and 6 p.m. Eastern. So that's part of why a lot of those trades come in at that time.
Extra volatility. And for a successful trader, volatility is their friend. Now, I'll tell you what's not someone's friend. Privacy coins. Privacy coins, not the friend of Dubai. That's why we're talking about Monero and Zcash pumping. Brand new all-time high for Monero, Zcash with a nice pump as well. They're banning privacy tokens and tighten stablecoin rules as part of a broader reset of its crypto regulatory framework. So we're seeing that out of the UAE. And this is happening at the same time a stablecoin got frozen. It looks like this is a Venezuela angle. Tether froze $182 million in their Tether token across 5 Tron wallets. And so this is across 5 wallets. The wallet freezes, one of the largest in recent months, as part of their policy to comply with the U.S. federal authorities, in this case, the Treasury, and the sanctions, and they executed it in a coordinated manner. USDT is the leading stablecoin. They have 64% of the global stablecoin market. These wallets held between 12 and 50 million, and the freezes were executed within the same day, suggesting a coordinated action rather than a series of unrelated incidents. And it looks like it belonged to Venezuela. Maduro used Tether to move about 80% of their oil revenue. Billions in sanctions evasion settled on Tron since 2020. Then the U.S. made a phone call to Tether, and Tether froze the wallets. Game over. If someone can freeze it, it isn't money. It doesn't solve sovereignty. And I think the end here is kind of just sets it up. There's exactly one asset that clears final settlement without asking permission from anyone. USDT, compromise. Yuan, political strings. Gold, try settling 500 million across the border in 10 minutes. CBDCs, same kill switch, government branding. This is the ad Bitcoin never had to buy, TJ. So
yeah,
huge ad for Bitcoin. I would agree with that.
Yeah, it just keeps stacking up. I did want to give a shout out. We are live on the arena today on Avalanche. For those of you watching there, I did hear we got a $2,000 tip. So shout out to whoever
Drew,
the legend was.
Put the link in.
Yeah, whoever the legend was who did that. I will drop a link here in the chat shortly. But always testing new streaming platforms. Obviously live on YouTube, live on X. Shout out to everybody there. Would love to see the arena chats in here. We're going to be doing fun giveaways and other things on there as time goes on. I know it's a great community. Drew's been having a lot of fun with it on Basement. So we will shout out to Colin. Colin is the one that tipped. So we're going to be doing some fun stuff there as time goes on. We're just dipping our toes in today, but you'll be seeing a lot more of us on there.
Hey, and if the water's warm, you know what TJ is going to wear for a bathing suit, everybody. All
Not
right?
much. Not much.
That's for the members, you know. All right, let's talk about Clarity Act here. Charles Hoskinson says David Sachs needs to be fired. You hear that? All in podcast, bro. You need to get out. Just saying, Charles Hoskinson. I don't think the Clarity Act will pass this quarter. If it doesn't pass this quarter, David Sachs should resign. He failed us as an industry. Price going up? No. Adoption going up? No. Do we have certainty and a strong foundation to build on? No. We have none of those things, David, he's saying. And here he is putting ants on his hands. I was going to say a different body part. If it doesn't pass this quarter, I think he should resign. Said he utterly failed the crypto industry since taking on the role of Trump's crypto czar in late 2024. Let's see. Well, actually early January, I guess he took some of the duties on late 24. It seeks to clarify the roles of the SEC, talking about the Clarity Act. It wants to clarify the SEC and the CFTC in regulating cryptocurrencies and provide guidance on different types of tokens, ostensibly stablecoins. Senate Ag and Banking Committee are expected to vote on this on Thursday. We covered this a lot last week. I don't want to reiterate too much, but if it this is what I think this is still Hoskin. Yeah, this is what Hoskin said. It centralizes the industry. This is talking about the Genius Act. Genius Act centralized the industry around BlackRock, Cantor, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley, and all these big guys. He said the Genius Act essentially handed Wall Street the keys to the crypto kingdom. So he said the Genius Act was basically a wolf in sheep's clothing. He also said there's, he kind of has some funny things about him. If there's an American crypto or not, he kind of makes fun of that whole situation. But Coinbase also a little upset about how this is going. They said they're going to pull their support over a stablecoin rewards ban. Now, Coinbase is ramping up the pressure on the U.S. lawmakers to resist the ban or the push to ban DeFi provisions in the major crypto bill known as the Clarity Act. They talk about, TJ, I don't know if you saw, Fox News, a banking super PAC, start throwing out like, oh yeah, we got to take out these DeFi provisions on Fox News of all places.
Yep. Yeah, no, they're definitely, the banks are working hard because they see it as a threat to their entire business, not just banks, but also credit card processors, all their reward points. They basically don't want people to be able to earn any type of yield on stablecoins. So it's like basically, hey, you put your dollars here and you can earn 5% interest. Well, that's a huge threat to a bank who's offering you 0.5 or 0.05 or even zero, nothing, even less. So, and they can't afford to do it because they're running antiquated and outdated business models that are inefficient and keep all the money for themselves versus giving some back to the people. There's actual competition now in banking for the first time in probably 50 plus years, and that's a big problem. And so they're putting a lot of money into trying to shut this down. It's a huge catalyst. If anybody, DCA and Prey was mentioning in the chat earlier, if you are a bear out there and you're looking for a negative catalyst, he asked, if this doesn't pass, would that be the catalyst we need to send things much lower? And I would say it's not if it doesn't pass, it's if it passes with bad language.
Yes,
so if it passes with the language that's negative towards DeFi and basically cuts the legs out of it before it ever gets a chance to run,
then nothing would be better than that.
Yes, nothing would be better. Exactly. And so that would be probably the dagger in the heart of a lot of crypto. Bitcoin obviously kind of rises above this as, again, it's kind of already been deemed a commodity. A lot of people aren't necessarily offering, staking services for Bitcoin, but it's the stable coins and the DeFi stuff that they're really, fighting back and forth. And what's crazy is they had it more or less approved. They had it done and they were about to push it through towards the end of last year in mid to late December. And I think the banks kind of realized and woke up like, wait a minute, we need to rally here and fight back against this thing before they push this through, because it could, the Aves of the world and the Coinbases of the world would then kind of supplant the JP Morgans and the Bank of Americas of the world. And they don't want that. They want to keep running the game they're running. And if this all, in my opinion, does end up in a roundabout way tying back to the Federal Reserve, that is basically the largest private bank out there, the bank of the banks. And again, their time is up. We're kind of getting into a world where central banks and local banks are not needed the way they once were. And I think they have now recognized that threat and they're responding with force. They're a very powerful adversary, and we are not out of the woods yet when it comes to crypto. If you've heard that phrase, first they laugh at you, then they fight you, then they join you type of thing. Well, we're just now starting the then they fight you. Like we thought Choke Point 2.0 was a fight, and it was pretty aggressive. But what we're experiencing now, even with 100% support from the in power administration, but almost everybody in Trump's cabinet is pro Bitcoin, all the way from the Commerce Secretary, the Treasury Secretary, the President himself. He's got a crypto and digital asset. They call it a czar, which I don't really love, but all of these people are working very hard to push this stuff through. And interestingly, they're meeting a lot of opposition through Congress. And if you look at who funds Congress, people that also have a lot of ties to legacy banking systems and kind of, control, if you will. I mean, really, if you look at the legacy banking system, it is a system of control. And what crypto allows is freedom. And there's nothing that scares people that are trying to keep control of everything than freedom and power for the people. And that's where we're at right now.
And it allows you to switch regimes very quickly. If I want to go from Bank of America to Truist Bank back to, Merrill Lynch, that's a long, complicated process. But if I have stablecoin earning yield on ETH and I want to switch it to Tron and then I want to switch it to Solana, it's a lot easier process, something I can do in seconds versus driving all over town, bringing in my license or a passport, signing there, waiting, they're typing in my social security number. Crypto is the better solution. Now, I do want to say Coinbase has a very strong vested interest in this. Coinbase cares because I didn't know this till today. They receive 100% of the interest income from USDC held directly on its platform. And TJ, you brought up a good point. That is why it is free to use USDC. They're basically going in a circle saying, we'll give USDC the best platform, everyone who uses it, but we get all the yield. And you know what? They shook hands. And if you look, there's a lot of similar investors with both those projects.
And here's the biggest difference. They allow their users, their clients, their customers to share in that and get a 5% on putting stable coins on their platform. You know who else gets 100% of the interest on their platforms? Banks, Bank of America. Yeah. And guess how much they give the people? Basically nothing. So that's the threat. That's the big debate that's happening now. Like, oh, wait a minute. These tech companies can provide a better service than we can at a cheaper rate. And then that means they're allowed to share some of that profits with their customers, which is a big incentive for our customers to, again, like I have a fair amount of dollars. I'm not leaving them in Wells Fargo or Bank of America. I keep just enough in there to operate businesses, but the rest sits on a platform that can earn some yield. And, so I get it. I understand why banks are scared. They should be scared because there's now technology is a better way to solve a age-old problem of custody. And you can even earn yield in self-custody solutions that are completely outside of Coinbase even. Yep. So,
are you bringing up the DZ stake pool on Cardano? All right, I stopped. I shouldn't even mention Cardano. We do got, hey, folks, I still got to show you ETH chart, Solana chart, ETH chart, ADA chart, XRP chart. So we still got 3 altcoin charts coming. CZ, though, making me feel very bullish on these alts. I could be wrong, but super cycle incoming, talking about the SEC removing crypto from its priority risk list. And then he just posted this earlier. UAE's talking about, the country behind Dubai, their peak energy demand. It's the 3 hottest days in the summer. Their capacity covers that. For the rest of the year, surplus of energy, some of which gets converted to Bitcoin. Durable store of value with low storage costs makes perfect sense. So whatever your target is for Bitcoin, make it higher. Now let's talk about Ripple. XRP chart going to be coming in after this. Hot off the charts here. Ripple sold, we got the number, TJ. They sold $8 billion worth of their tokens in 2025.
Dang.
That's a heck of a business model. That's a good job, Ripple Labs. They pulled off a lot. 8 billion. I would say that's a decent amount. Now, how is this a good thing? This is the angle they're saying. This is why it's good. They sold $8 billion onto the open market, TJ. They used the proceeds to acquire profitable companies, strengthening their long-term position in the crypto ecosystem. They did acquire like 6 things, over the 2025 period. So I guess that's somewhat true.
Good for Ripple,
Good for Ripple. Good for Ripple Labs there. But let's talk about XRP charts. We're looking at the XRP daily chart. There's 2 parallel ranges. You can see last time we were in a range. We tested the top of the range, used that, basically broke down as support, and then off to the races. A higher high was created. Now, if you look where we're at right now, we are still in a different parallel range, but we got 2 levels of support. I put a line right here because if you look, this is a strong level of support. So I'm keeping my eye out on this range. If we can bounce, this is a good time to maybe open a long position, a lower leverage, longer time frame long. I'm not sure if we're going to hit it, but this is a great entry point. And if this breaks down, I would say you could add, again, low leverage, maybe close if you want, maybe wait for it to get down to this level. This is going to give us, a little wick right there, blew past it October 10th, but also just a strong area of consideration. So after this, though, if we lose this, I would cut my losses. To me, I see a pretty good risk reward on the short term to the upside. XRP, could bounce a strong 10%. To the downside, only about a 4%. So this is just a good risk reward analysis for an XRP trade. I do like XRP at this level. Another chart we got is ETH chart here. ETH Bitcoin ratio bottomed out in April, mirroring the 2019 cycle. I'm going to break it down. We're going to show this chart right here. This is ETH BTC that we're looking at right here. ETH BTC. If you didn't watch the ETH video where I had, I think, 3 ETH charts, you missed out. You missed out on all the alpha. One of the things I was looking at is the 20-week moving average. This recent breakdown, we fall below the 20-week moving average. We stay below it for about a year, 50 weeks. If you look last time, we broke below the 50-week moving average. And guess what? We stayed below about 50 weeks, 49 weeks. So this was the bottom for ETH BTC. We're looking at a very similar situation. You can see we chopped around that 20-week moving average as it slowly petered to the upside. And that's kind of what we're looking at right here. Let's zoom in a little bit. We're still in a parallel range with ETH Bitcoin. So ETH, from just compared to Bitcoin, I'm loving ETH. I am expecting a little bit of a reversal. And then last but not least, we got the Cardano chart for Cardanians here. Also very close to strong support. You can see it right here. You can see it right here. This is where I'm looking. I missed my opportunity to load up on 33-cent ADA. This happened at like 2 a.m. Basically, the tail end of that night, early mornings, started to bounce. Didn't take a look back. I'm looking at this area. If we lose this area, I would expect a breakdown to either this trend line or this trend line. They might actually come pretty close to just kind of coinciding. So keep an eye out on Cardano. I might have a new level for that strong entry. But TJ, I don't know if the ADA daily is going to break below that right there.
Yeah, it's definitely looking strong. We got a super chat here asking if we could take a look at Tau, which I would always love as well.
Tau. I've been adding to my Tau position here. Let me just type in. Oh, you got to type in BitTensor to get the spot crypto. So I'll do that now. I'm anal about this, folks. I like to go to the spot crypto on TradingView. That way, when I draw lines, I'm not like, oh, was it on Binance? Was it on Coinbase? Was it on? I don't know where it's at. This just allows me to go back. Oh, look at this weird thing that I did 2 months ago. Oh, wow. What do you know? It's kind of playing out. Don't tell me it did. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about, folks. You never know. It's like, God, we told ourselves the entry right there.
Yeah.
Looking at this, there is let's just say a support level. I don't think we're going to go down to this level again. This was like generational entry 160. We couldn't push down there before. I would see, are we going bullish by checking some of these moving averages? I do like that. Have we respected this in the past? I would say we have. So this is going to maybe chop around. Let's go to the weekly here.
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, I mean, obviously, I was drawn to this for kind of macro fundamental reasons more than just the technical. But I do think, I don't know what time frame you were on a few minutes ago, but you could see that U shape right there at the end. We did seem like we formed a support and we are recovering. So we're at a pretty key level, I'd say, right now. Kind of just sitting right here where if it does break higher, I do think I'm front running it a little bit. Where like there's a chance this rejects and goes back down to that level. But my bet is with the AI trend, with how much this is a project that's being used actually, and is kind of being indirectly endorsed by people like Jensen Huang and people in NVIDIA and AMD,
Polyhopatia.
Yeah, all sorts of people that really understand AI compute at a high level. It's also got a hard cap, which again, you guys keep hearing me talk about that. That used to be what most of crypto was built on. Obviously, Bitcoin specifically These days, it seems to be an afterthought, but yeah, it's looking. Yeah, look at that. It's definitely respecting those fibs.
Yeah, it's getting rejected off the 236. If we could turn this into support, I'm looking at maybe a cooldown around this 382. So if you're in a short-term trade, I do like the entries here. I wouldn't hold too much, because maybe watch this moving average. If we break down below that, maybe we come back down to this level. But I like a move up to the 382 in the short term for sure. So Tau, looking very good. If we could flip this into support, maybe bounce off this, I'll be looking to add to my position.
There you go. Yeah, looking good.
All right, we got a little bit of news. X is going to be adding payments. Maybe this is called smart cash tags. It kind of did like a little bit of a brief trial on this a couple years ago, but not enough people are talking about the sell and the buy button right there. So very, very interesting. You might be able to buy and sell crypto with your X account. And the news that almost got buried, Strategy made one of their biggest purchases in half a year. They haven't bought this much since July.
Wow. Billions.
And then that's him waking up to the Jerome Powell press conference. Like, oh,
yeah.
God, really?
Yeah. But that's not going to deter their strategy, but it's definitely pun intended. Definitely nice to see, big buys from big Bitcoin whales. Obviously they've stacked up their cash position as well. But 1.25 billion, 13,000 Bitcoin is, that's a large Bitcoin purchase. And they've got people there invested in the long term and continuing to look at this. Strategy stock still beat down heavily. I don't know if there was a clip that kind of went viral over the weekend of X where it was one of the Berkshire Hathaway investors talking about, I bought, I think 2,000 shares shares of Berkshire Hathaway when they were dirt cheap, and the guy's sitting on, generational wealth, hundreds of millions of dollars now. And it was somebody shared that and said, this is going to be Strategy and Metaplanet shareholders, in 20 or 30 years, which, is not outside the realm of possibility. Some of these things are at, very beat down prices that could rebound very quickly. So I've been this close to pulling the trigger on Strategy stock multiple times. I am a believer if you have somebody in your life that's a little bit older and they're looking for fixed income returns, that STRC, that stretch product that they have, I think is very viable. 10% yield with and it's designed to be pegged close to $100. So you get 10% on your money instead of 4 or 5% on treasuries, or I think is definitely something to look at. So
yeah, I'm in a small bag, small bag. So I'm in a MicroStrategy option.
Oh, nice.
This is gonna close in March if I'm not mistaken there. So I'll just be looking to maybe take a little exit off a short-term Bitcoin pump. So if Bitcoin gets a nice little pump, I would expect this stock to turn around. The MicroStrategy stock is trading around 160. And I think, we're going at 320. Very, very high mark, but this is the position you get it very, very cheap. You're not paying $20 for an option. You're paying $1 for an option. So you're selling into the GameStop buyers, essentially. You're selling these into retail. I don't think Stanley Druckenmiller is buying this. I don't think Scott Bessent is telling his nephew to buy this. This is going to be for the degen. So if you want that degen mentality, you got it in crypto, but you're like, oh, can I actually make money? Because I can't buy Solana meme coins, but I want that Solana meme coins sense of life, sense of purpose, sense of excitement. I've been trading options. We've been doing great. I think CoreWeave one, TJ, that is just gone absolutely bonkers.
Nice.
I don't want to hear. All right, okay. We're up 84% today. We're up 84. Yeah. I put this in the Discord Friday, so we only got 1 day of trading. We're up 84% in 1 day of trading. This was detailed in the Discord under DZ Trades. I put it in there. I put the strike date. I put my, when I'm buying it. There you go, folks. Now, TJ, very, 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 very small amount, but this is risky, folks. I wouldn't sell a bunch of Bitcoin to buy Fartcoin. So I'm not expecting you to sell your Tesla to buy these options. But if you got some dry power on the sidelines, we've been stacking up and been able to buy some quality stocks here and there. Like, all right, I will go ahead and get that Tesla share. I will go ahead and, maybe add to my Circle shares, et cetera.
Yeah, there you go. And those are other ones that could, Circle specifically, benefit a lot from, a positive result of the Clarity Act going through and market structure bill. So Yeah, it's good. It's good to remember what brought you here, right? That it's okay to dream, that you can make money very quickly. It is high risk. You don't, if you're just sitting on your hands playing safe things, that's one way to build wealth for sure, especially if you're starting with some decent capital. And if you've got very little, there really, in my opinion, is no better opportunity out there on the market right now than being involved in crypto. So if you're here today, pat yourself on the back, whether if you're on X, Arena, YouTube, wherever you are bettering yourself, you are trying to improve your life, and people that approach life with that mentality do have a better chance of actually seeing that come to play out in their lives. And I do want to, did you have anything else you wanted to hit real quick?
I gave this to you at 60 cents.
Jeez.
I'm out of the position. I'm out of the position. I sold out Friday. I gave this to you at 60 cents. And you're like, I don't want to pay attention. I don't want to listen to DZ.
Yeah, options. You got options, man. You're gonna have to call you DZ the option master. But okay, we'll have to check. We'll have to check that one out. I don't know much about it, but I did want to give just a quick kind of reminder to everybody out there. Somebody that I know fairly well took their own life over the weekend, largely due to financial stresses and pressures. I don't know all the details, but I do know that was probably part of it. So just keep in mind, obviously we love doing this. We love talking about all this stuff. It does matter in life, but nothing matters as much as life itself. So you never know anybody that you're dealing with, whether it's somebody close to you, a coworker, somebody you're just passing on the street or interacting with in any way. You never know what they're carrying with them and maybe what type of pain they might be going through. So just a gentle reminder, be kind to everybody out there, spread the love, and don't ever let this stuff, this is all temporary. Everything will pass. Money, especially these days, isn't real, so just keep that in mind, and try to, spread a positive light and a positive message, and don't get too caught up in. That's all we got. Make sure to use self-custody. We're going to run this ad from our partner, Arculus, one of the best hardware wallets out there. Protect yourself, protect your coins, and we'll see you guys at the top. We just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor, Arculus. They are a cold storage hardware wallet, helps you secure all of your digital assets for the future. Just tap this thing to the back of your phone and boom, you're in. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, but also wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the Disco fam. You've supported us a lot over the years. If you want to support the channel now, just use the code DC20. It gets you 20% off this card. It's the #1 way you can support this channel going forward. Thank you for your support. We'll see you at the top.